Good morning and welcome to Start a Business in Washington State. This is one of several small business requirements and resources webinars provided by the Washington State Small Business Liaison Team. As indicated on this slide, coming up here in just a second, you'll be able to download the presentation in a PDF format. I believe you can see that on your screen now. That's http://business.wa.gov SBRR. My name is Scott Hitchcock. I work for the Governor's Office for Regulatory Innovation and Assistance, where I'm the Business Services Manager and leader of the Small Business Liaison Team. The SBLT, as we call it, you will be meeting several other SBLT members today during this presentation. They are all committed to making it easier to do business in Washington State. Shortly, I'll be telling you more about the team, how you can contact them, and how to get access to many other resources. Today, we'll be providing helpful information for starting a business in Washington, and our focus will be on state requirements. Please understand that most of the counties and cities you plan to operate in will have additional requirements, and you must adhere to those as well. Please contact them for their regulations and for assistance. For example, you'll probably need multiple business licenses, one from the state for sure, and likely additional business licenses for most of the cities and some of the counties you operate in. You will hear more about this in detail later in the presentation. Depending on the type of business you have, there may be federal regulations you will need to research and follow as well. Before we start, I want to tell you what we're not going to talk about today. This webinar is not going to cover marketing assessments, detailed business planning, financing, or other business management practices. We encourage you to attend one or more of those workshops or a workshop like that covering these topics. Today, we'll be introducing you to some of those resources that can help you plan and manage your business. But our focus is on state requirements. When we present this webinar live, you would have had an opportunity to ask questions after each of the 6 steps that we cover. However, this is a recorded session, and I want to provide you with some resources right now that will help you with your questions. This slide provides the contact information for the presenters. Please reach out to us with your questions about this presentation. In just a second, I will give you the additional resources for answering general questions and for topics other than what we cover in this presentation. So let's get started here. We want to keep this simple. We want to try to provide you with 6 steps we'll be addressing in this presentation to help you get your business started. They are, we're going to talk about various business startup resources that will help you prepare for starting a business, not the least of which is making a business plan. We'll talk to you about various ways to structure your business and how to form the business entity. You will learn about getting required licenses and permits. Also, the requirements for submitting your state tax and required reports. You will learn about employer requirements. And finally, we'll be connecting you with nonprofit organizations that can accelerate your success by providing advisors and other forms of support. You don't have to do this alone. Watch the title of the slides to keep track as we're going through these steps. All right, let's get started with step 1. Talk about the many resources available to you, and then we'll dig into each of them a little bit deeper. Business.wa.gov is a website that's going to be the place to start when you're looking for resources. The Small Business Guide is a great reference for all phases of your business from start to run to grow. Training and advising programs will help you get prepared, especially if you were starting a business for the first time. There are many resources to help you work smarter and accelerate your success. And finally, the Small Business Liaison Team. That's us, along with our colleagues from more than 24 other state agencies. We're all here to help you learn and help provide access to information for you. So let's go into each one of these a little bit deeper. I'm going to go to business.wa.gov now and share my screen. If you have a cell phone handy, or if you know how to view a browser in a separate window from this presentation, you might follow along on your computer. It might make it easier for you to find this again in the future. The first thing you'll notice is the website's asking you to select one or more cities of interest to you. You can see that in the right side, the upper side of the screen here. So you want to pick a city that you are interested in, and you can do more than one. And when you're done, it will save that in your profile on the browser, and it will filter the information as you go through the website. Think of this website as the access point for many resources that you may need, including assistance from the ORI Information Center. On the home page, you will find clickable icons for smartphones that will allow you to text a question to our center. You can also contact us live by chatting with us. You can also email us, or you can call us directly on our 1-800 line. On the website, there's an abundance of information that you can browse through later, but here are a couple of the important pages on the site. You notice here in the upper right, the SBRR workshops. You can download today's presentation from here, and you can register for one of the additional COVID-19 resources and impacts workshops when you're ready for that, or even the GROW workshop that we offer. When we discuss the small business guide in a minute, you can access it here as well. You click on the small business guide here and it'll take you to that. And then if you notice, there's a menu in the upper right-hand corner here. You click on that, it opens up access to links to the entire site. While starting and operating a business is challenging, finding what you need doesn't have to be. This website can really help you with that. Let's talk about the Small Business Guide next. The Washington Small Business Guide is very comprehensive. In addition to including the steps to take to starting a business, it includes information about the decisions you will need to make before taking those steps, including Washington state requirements and resources. But it goes beyond that, providing federal and local requirements, general best practices, and links to small business advising and training resources. The Small Business Guide is broken into 6 sections based on the stage of business and the kind of information you need. The sections are plan, start, payroll, open, run, grow, and close. The business guide is readily accessible online through the business.wa.gov website, but it's also available as a PDF, so you can have it as printed reference material for later. The PDF version is available in English, Spanish, Korean, Russian, Mandarin, and Vietnamese. As a new business, you'll want to focus on the plan and start and run sections for now. When you get to employees, you'll also want to look at the payroll section. The planning and starting a business is a big step that may require some in-person assistance. So let's talk about training and advising programs. In addition to online resources, we want to make sure you know about Washington's many free and low-cost business resource centers, training and advisory programs. They're represented here on the slide. You'll see SCORE, SBDC, the SBA, and WSMA. If you want to reach to your business and financial goals as efficiently as possible, take advantage of these valuable resources. A common problem for small business owners is that without prior experience and training, you can miss steps and requirements, which can have devastating impacts later. It also means you may miss out on tools, tips, and resources, which could have provided a great boost. Don't be one of the owners. Be informed. Don't be one of those owners. Be informed so you can work smarter. Prepare before you start by accessing free and low-cost trainings available from one of the providers listed on business.wa.gov. These resources are free and low cost because they are sponsored. They are top-notch organizations. And some of you will even provide funding if you complete their training. At the end of this presentation, we have a slide that will list links to several of these resources. The last resource I'll mention today is the Small Business Liaison Team, live people from more than 24 different state agencies who are committed to supporting you and Washington small businesses. You can't find what you're looking for through business.wa.gov, or you need more detailed information, assistance, or support, you'll find the phone numbers and email addresses to team members who'll be happy to hear you out and provide individualized assistance. You can download the SBLT contact sheet on business.wa.gov. Finally, set yourself up for success by making a business plan. There are many forms this can take. Some are very brief, but it's important to plan your path. If it's not your strong suit, get help from one of the resources listed in business.wa.gov, such as SCORE and SBDC. There are just several options that are free and can help you get started. Of course, there is a plan section in the Small Business Guide that links you to these resources. So that wraps up my presentation on resources and planning. But as you listen to the rest of the webinar, you will see there are a number of considerations you'll need to include in your business plan. For example, our next presenter is going to talk about how you can structure your business and the steps you need to take to make it official. So now I would like to introduce to you Patrick Reed from the Secretary of State's office. He'll take over for now for the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Scott. Now we're going to move on to step 2, which is forming the business. We're going to address the standard options for business structures and what to do for each of them. One of the first of many decisions you'll make will be what form of organization will your business be. With one owner, the standard choices are sole proprietorship, limited liability company, or corporation. In Washington, which is a community property state, a married couple can have a sole proprietorship with more than one owner. The typical choices are general partnerships, limited liability companies, or corporations. What form of ownership you select is an important decision that can have long-term consequences. Do your research first. A good place to start is the Washington Small Business Guide, specifically in the Start a Business section. Here you're going to find items that will help your decision process, like, are you looking to limit your personal liability? What are your growth plans, financing and federal taxes, and a chart that helps compare some of those options. It's recommended that you consult with an attorney or advisor on the topic, especially if you're going to go into business with other people. If you're wondering about the S Corp status or C Corp status, those are just IRS subchapters. They only apply to your federal tax designation and are not recognized at the state level. Your first step in forming your business depends on what type of ownership you decide. Corporations and LLCs start with the Secretary of State's office. Sole proprietorships and general partnerships start with the Department of Revenue. If you're choosing to be an LLC or a corporation, you'll start with the Secretary of State Corporations and Charities Division. With an LLC, you'll be completing a certificate of formation and an initial report. And with a corporation, you'll be completing articles of incorporation with initial report. If you choose, you can file an initial report at a later time, but most commonly, those are filed at the time of formation. It can all be done online for $200, whether you're an LLC or a corporation or a limited partnership. But keep in mind, that's just the legal entity and public record filing. To truly be an LLC or a corporation with the desired limited liability and other benefits, you really have to make sure you operate like one. That starts with the governance documents. For example, an LLC operating agreement or corporation bylaws. Even if it's just you in business by yourself, you'll want to make sure you learn about those documents, what to put in them, and how they can affect your business down the road. And there's even more to know than that. Keep in mind, you'll be creating an organization legally separate from yourself, and you'll need to be mindful of keeping that separation distinct and following best practices. Do your research about what it means to be an LLC or a corporation. And you are highly encouraged to have an attorney advise you now and in the future. On the website, you'll see a YouTube video that will show you the forms and information you'll need and how to step-by-step complete it. For example, you'll need to name your new entity. If it's a corporation or an LLC, they must have a designation specifying that. So if it's a limited liability company, you have to include LLC or spell out the words limited liability company or similar. And for a corporation, you have to have Inc. or corporation or enterprise or a corporate designation as part of the actual name. This will be your business legal name, which you can choose to use as your business operating name or not. You might instead choose to use a trade name or a doing business as DBA name, which we'll be discussing a little bit later. You'll need to name an executor, or an executor, excuse me, which is probably going to be you, the person who is executing the action of setting up the entity. With small businesses, that would typically be the owner or one of the primary owners. You'll also need to name your governing people or governors. Those are the people that are vested with authority over your business. With most small businesses, your governors are typically also your owners, but governor is a generic term. You can use other words in the course of business, such as members for an LLC, shareholders or officers for a corporation. But when it comes to the public record, they're all referred to as a governor. You'll need to designate a registered agent, someone that is available during business hours at a physical address and is on public record with the Secretary of State. Small business owners typically name themselves as the registered agent, but you can name someone else who agrees to the responsibility or engage a service company to take on that role for you. What the role is essentially being available during normal business hours to receive and forward official correspondence. You can designate a mailing address for regular mail, but the registered agent and all secretary, you can register or designate a mailing address for regular mail, but ultimately you have to have a registered agent for a physical location. The registered agent and all Secretary of State documents are public record and accessible online. The Secretary of State's office will issue you a Unified Business Identifier or UBI number. That's your business state ID number. You'll also need a federal ID number, which you can apply for directly at the IRS website, and there is no cost for the EIN. Federal ID numbers are typically EINs, which is employer identification number, even if you're not an employer. You may also see the term FEIN or TIN for taxpayer identification number. They're just different names for the same number. EINs aren't just for corporations and LLCs. You'll need an EIN if you plan to be a partnership or a sole proprietorship with employees. Sole proprietorship without employees can use the owner's social security number as the business federal ID number, but it's not recommended. It can make your social security number more vulnerable to fraud. If you have a corporation or LLC registered in another state and want to do business in Washington, you'll need to register as a foreign entity in Washington. Foreign meaning anything non-Washington. If you don't do so, you may be operating without legal protections that you have in your home state, including limited liability. talk with your attorney to get more information. Regarding your company in Washington, registering your company in Washington is relatively easy. You can do it online for $200 and have it completed within a couple of days, or you can file it on paper for $180 and it will be filed in the order that it's received. Now we're going to transition over to Department of Revenue, and I will hand off to Cindy.
Thanks, Patrick. Hi, I'm Cindy Otovich with the Department of Revenue. And so now we're going to talk about step 3, which is getting licenses and permits. And here's what we'll cover: the licensing wizard, creating a SAW account, general licensing questions, trade name registration, hiring plans, and other licenses and permits that may apply. So registering with the Secretary of State as an LLC or corporation does not create your tax and licensing accounts. You need to go here to the Department of Revenue's website for that. And if you've decided to be a sole proprietorship or a partnership, you'll establish your business through the licensing process here, as you can see on our website. But before we walk you through those steps, we want to tell you about a great tool, and that's the Business Licensing Wizard. The wizard will take you through a series of questions and steps. At the end, you'll get a customized list of licenses and permits you'll need, given your form of ownership, industry, location, hiring plans, and other key information. It's a great tool to use before you start the application process because it'll tell you all the specific licenses and permits you'll need. So if you're not sure about what you want to do and where, you can enter multiple scenarios and see what each requires. And just to note that the wizard doesn't actually register you. The purpose is just to tell you what you need to start the registration process with the Department of Revenue and locations for the business scenario that you entered. Okay, many businesses are mobile, which gives great access for your customers, but adds some complexity for licensing. Most cities where you do business will require that you have a local license. So what do you do if you don't know where all you'll be working? Get the local license for where you're based and ones for where you're pretty sure you'll be. You can get others later, but keep in mind 2 things. Realize that most local licenses are annual, so you'll start a clock ticking. If you're not going to be working in a particular city for several months, you may want to wait. And each time you go to the Department of Revenue's licensing website to obtain a local license, you'll also pay a processing fee. So it makes sense to batch licenses you'll know you'll need at the same time. So let's assume you completed your scenario in the wizard and you have your list of things that you'll need. Your next step is to complete the actual business license. First, you'll need a Secure Access Washington or SAW account if you don't already have one. This is required for the Department of Revenue, as well as other state agencies like the Departments of Labor and Industries, Employment Security, Social and Health Services, and Licensing. The good news is, once you've created a SAW ID, you'll use that for many Washington state agencies. If you don't have one, you'll need to create one and can do so right on the Department of Revenue's website or on the SAW portal. And this is a snapshot of the Secure Access Washington or SAW portal. As I mentioned in the previous slide, you can register for a SAW account on the Department of Revenue's website or by going directly to secureaccess.wa.gov. Okay, so you've checked the licensing wizard, you've got yourself a SAW user ID. Next, go to our My DOR help pages for a list of additional questions you'll be asked during the application process. You can find them at dor.wa.gov/apply, and that's that link you see there at the bottom of the screen. And it's really a good idea to have all the information gathered before you begin your application. If you registered as an LLC or corporation, you'll need the Unified Business Identifier or UBI number assigned by the Secretary of State's office before you begin the business license application. If you'll be a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, the Department of Revenue will assign the UBI through this licensing process. As the slide shows, you'll need to input information about owners, the industry, and the business location or locations, including the address and the city. If your business will be based in city limits, it's likely you'll need a local business license, and you'll be able to register with most cities with the business license application. If your business will work in multiple cities, you'll likely need multiple local business licenses. So most Washington cities partner with DOR, so you can get your city and state license at the same time. For every city that you plan to work in, check the Department of Revenue city page first. If you don't see your city listed, be proactive and go check that city's website to ensure that you don't miss a licensing requirement. Note that many cities have tax and tax return filing requirements as well. So for example, a few of the bigger cities like Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma, and Everett, they have their own process. So you'll need to contact them directly. Just know before you open, so you can include those tax costs of doing business in your pricing model, and so that you don't get behind on paying your taxes right from the start. And you'll need to estimate your annual revenues. Many new businesses don't know what to put there. Ideally, for the benefit of you and your business success, you'll have a business plan and projection, which should give you an idea. But rest assured, no one expects you to get this number right. What it does is help the Department of Revenue set up your reporting frequency. If the reality is significantly different from your estimate, we may alter that frequency. We'll go a bit deeper with trade names and hiring plans in the next slide. Okay, so let's talk about trade names. What name will your business operate under? For a sole proprietorship, you can choose your own legal name, or for an LLC corporation, you can use the name you filed with the Secretary of State's office. Any name that you want to use other than your official licensed business name is considered a trade name. You can file for one or more trade names from the start through the state business licensing process, or you can add them later at a later date by revising your business license. Registering a trade name means that the name that you register will be legally affiliated with your licensed business entity. It's a DBA, or doing business as. However, it does not mean you own the name. For that, you would need a trademark. Nor does it provide any assurance that you're not infringing upon someone else's trademark. Before you select a name, do your homework. DOR's Registered Trade Names webpage has links to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and other databases. Do searches through various search engines as well. In building a business, you'll be building brand equity. You may well want to control that name, so it's good to select a name you could trademark later if you choose to. Also, you want to do your homework so you're not receiving a cease and desist letter from another business telling you that you're infringing on their trademark and must change your name or be sued. Registering a trade name is $5 per name plus a processing fee. If you're registering a name with your initial business license, you'll pay $90 for the state business license, $5 for the trade name, and potentially other fee amounts for local business licenses. If you want a trade name later, you'll pay $19 for revising your business license and $5 for trade name registration. Okay, related to hiring, you'll need to be ready to address these 3 questions when you complete the licensing form. Will you be using independent contractors? There's a lot of misunderstanding about the independent contractor relationship, so I'll address that further with the next slide. Will you hire staff in the next 90 days? If you say yes to this question, your information will be automatically sent to the Employment Security Department and to the Department of Labor and Industries to get your business set up with required accounts for unemployment insurance, paid family and medical leave, and workers' compensation insurance. Having the account set up automatically makes it easy for you when it's time to do your quarterly reporting. But be aware that Employment Security and L&I will be expecting those reports, and you're required to file them whether or not you had employees during a particular quarter. There will be no cost for filing a report if you had no employees, but there may be a penalty if you fail to file a timely report. What type of work will your employees do? L&I needs to have a basic idea of what they will be doing in order to determine the risk class and rate for workers' compensation insurance. Workers' comp covers employees who were injured on the job. Will you employ anyone under 18? If so, you'll need a minor work permit. By checking that box, the information will automatically be sent to L&I's youth employment staff, who will ensure that the activities are approved for minors and that you get the information you need regarding special requirements. If you don't plan to hire employees soon, but may want them in the future, no worries. At that time, you can just return to the Department of Revenue's website and revise your business license to become a registered employer. There's a $19 processing fee when you revise your license for hiring or other reasons. Okay, now back to the question of independent contractors. It's not uncommon for small businesses to engage independent contractors, but often many of those contractors don't actually meet the federal or state requirements, would actually be considered employees based on the law. There's a lot of misunderstanding here. It doesn't matter how many hours they work for you, how much they earn, or what you call them. If they don't pass the independent contractor test, you're required to consider them employees, follow employment laws, and put them on your payroll. So definitely take a look at this L&I publication and website where you can go through that test and learn more. There's a link down there at the bottom of the screen. But back to business licensing application. If you plan to hire independent contractors, you'll want to include that. Okay, many businesses require additional licensing and permitting. Architects, real estate agents, certified public accountants, hairstylists, and many other have professional licensing in addition to their business licensing. And the Washington Department of Licensing handles most of those. Additionally, all businesses that are involved in building, remodeling, or various home improvement services are required to be registered as contractors through the Washington Department of Labor and Industries. And food-related businesses require permits from the local county health department. Those that serve alcohol must have liquor licenses from the Washington Liquor and Cannabis Board. Your facility may need building, fire department, or other permits, and there are others. So where do you learn about all of these? Remember that licensing wizard we described earlier? It will tell you about many of them, but you'll also want to check with your city, county, industry associations, advisors, competitors, and others. Okay, so next we're going to shift from business licensing requirements to taxes. And what we'll cover is business and occupation tax, sales tax, use tax, real and personal property tax. And if you have employees, we'll talk about state unemployment tax, paid family and medical leave, and workers' compensation insurance premiums. So in Washington, we do not have an individual or business income tax. Instead, we have a business and occupation tax, which is imposed on most businesses. The B&O tax is the gross receipts tax. There are no deductions for expenses or costs of doing business. There are over 20 B&O tax classifications. The major classifications are retailing, wholesaling, and service and other activities. Depending on your specific type of business activity, you may need to report under more than one classification. For example, if you make a product and sell it to consumers, you'll report under manufacturing and retailing with an offsetting credit. But that's a whole nother class. Sign up for the department's Business Tax Basics webinar to get more specific information on tax liabilities. And while there are no deductions for business expenses, there are some other limited deductions. For example, if you sell a product and ship it out of state, you can deduct that income. Our Business Tax Basic webinars cover deductions as well. I said that most businesses are taxable under B&O tax. To close a loop on that, if you're in the business of transporting people or goods for hire, maybe your Uber Eats or DoorDash, you are taxable under public utility tax. Again, the B&O and the public utility taxes are on the business, and you should not be charging your customers these taxes. We have tools to help you determine what classification applies to your business. Our tax classifications for common business activities page, shown here, is a great place to start for your cut to the chase answer. For example, accounting. So for more detailed information, we have many industry guides available as well. Okay, sales and use tax. So you're all familiar with sales tax, right? This is the tax that you collect from your customers on most sales. The retail sales tax, often referred to simply as sales tax, is Washington's largest tax source. Local sales tax is the second largest revenue generator for local governments behind property tax. All sales tax amounts collected from customers are considered trust funds of the state. These amounts are to be held by the retailer until remitted to the Department of Revenue. Retail sales tax is due not only on the sale of things like a hair dryer or clothes or prepared food, it's also due on certain services. If you're performing a service where you're installing, repairing, cleaning, altering, or improving tangible personal property, you must collect retail sales tax. Sales tax must be collected on the full price, including shipping and handling charges. And sales tax is also due on many services and activities, including certain amusement and recreation services, lawn maintenance, and physical fitness services activities. Sellers are personally liable for remitting the correct amount of sales tax, even if they didn't collect the proper amount or any amount from the purchaser. Also, if you've overcollected the sales tax, maybe collected the wrong rate, or the product should not have been taxed, you would also have to return it to the buyer or remit it to the department. If you don't pay sales tax on things you're buying to use in your business, you most likely owe use tax. You can learn about use tax in our Business Tax Basics webinar. So sales tax rates vary throughout Washington. You must charge the rate where your customer is receiving the goods or services. Local tax collected is based on the location of the sale, generally where the customer receives the good or service. So your storefront or where it's being delivered. And revenue has several tools to help you determine the correct sales tax rate to charge. Our mobile app is the best, especially if you're on the go, like at a job site or making a delivery. But we also have several tools on our website, from tax rate flyers to downloadable files for your point of sale system to a lookup screen similar to the mobile app. So make sure you check those out. And most people know that property tax applies to real property, such as land and improvements to land. Property tax also applies to personal property used in conducting business when it's not exempt by law. The chief characteristic distinguishing personal property from real property is mobility. Personal property includes machinery, equipment, furniture, and supplies. It doesn't include business inventories for resale. So contact your county directly for property tax information. We have a list on our website shown here at dor.wa.gov/county contacts. And at this time, I'm going to transition over to Andrew from L&I.
Greetings, I'm Andrew Bryan, the Assistant Small Business Liaison at the Department of Labor and Industries. And I'm the lucky guy who gets to go over everyone's favorite topic, employment taxes. These are the state employment taxes you can expect to pay once you become an employer. State unemployment taxes paid to the Employment Security Department are typically about 2 to 3% of gross payroll. So for every $100 you pay an employee, you'll have to pay about $3 to Employment Security. But your specific rate will be provided to you by Employment Security once they establish your account. In 2021, you'll pay that rate on each employee's earnings up to $56,500. Earnings beyond that in 2021 aren't taxed. Paid family and medical leave is also paid to the Employment Security Department. If you have 50 or fewer employees, you don't have to pay anything as the employer, though you can choose to. However, you would deduct and submit about 0.25% of your employee's pay from their paycheck. So for every $100, that's about 25 cents. If you have more than 50 employees, you'll be contributing as well, so you can add about 15 cents to that. Workers' compensation insurance premiums are paid to the Department of Labor and Industries. What you'll pay will be based on the number of worker hours. Rates vary greatly depending on the type of job and its historical cost of injuries, which determines your risk classification. High hazard jobs like construction, you'll pay more. Low hazard jobs like computer programming, you'll pay a lot less. Most of the premium is paid by the employer, but a part can be deducted from employees' paychecks. This chart is excerpted from the payroll section of the Small Business Guide. Here you'll see those three taxes, what they're for, how and when to report and pay, and to which agency. The fully linked table, however, also includes federal payroll tax responsibilities, which you'll need to know also. In addition to what the payroll section provides, there's further information about your ongoing tax responsibilities in the Run section of the guide. If it's just going to be the owner working, good news. Business owners typically aren't considered employees, so state employment taxes aren't required. Sole proprietors, partners, managing members of LLCs, and corporate officers are exempt. However, family members are not typically exempt unless they're also owners. While they may not be required to participate, owners may want to opt in for paid family medical leave and workers' compensation insurance coverage. Federal employment taxes are a different animal. Most owners of sole proprietorships, partnerships, and LLCs pay income taxes and Social Security and Medicare taxes through their 1040 tax returns. Working owners of corporations or of LLCs choosing to be taxed like corporations are considered employees and will be taxed like other employees through their paychecks. You want to see the IRS website and talk with your accountant for more information. Now let's say we take the next step, learning employer requirements. Here's what we'll cover in step 5: hiring employees, new hire reporting, employer requirements, and employer services. We've already talked about employment taxes, which are certainly requirements for employers, but guess what? There are many more. I'm sure it comes as no surprise that you can learn about them through the Small Business Guide and its links. This is from the Start Your Business section of the guide, but you'll also find this information in Grow Your Business. Employers are required to report all new hires and rehires, including part-time and temporary employees, within 20 days of hire to the Washington Department of Social and Health Services. The information is used for child support collections purposes and unemployment fraud detection. You will report the employee's name, address, birth date, social security number, and hire date through the Secure Access Washington website, which you would have already created a login for in order to license your business. There are a few requirements with new hires as well, such as employer and employee completion of the Department of Homeland Security I-9 form, and the employee's completion of the IRS W-4 form. You'll find information and links to those forms in, where else? The Small Business Guide. Now here's a list of additional employment laws, and it is a mighty list. There are even more than what's listed here, but these are some of the major ones. We can't cover them all in detail in this webinar, but you know where you can access that information. That's right, through the Small Business Guide. You can also learn more by attending the L&I Essentials for Business webinar, which is offered every month by yours truly, and is certain to be the most thrilling L&I webinar you will ever attend. Fair warning, I do issue dad jokes, but I don't issue refunds, mostly because the webinar is free. By the way, L&I provides many services to employers as well as overseeing requirements. This webinar will also share some of those opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, the Employment Security Department offers great resources for employers. They include data on local wage rates and free job postings, so check them out on the links listed here. Now that concludes step 5 and learning employer requirements. Now on to our final step with Scott Hitchcock from Mariah.
Thank you, Andrew. So planning and starting a business is huge. Remember that there are in-person services such as SCORE, SBDC, and others that can provide assistance. Many are free and others are low cost, so make use of them and reach out so that your business and financial goals can be reached as efficiently as possible. And those of us who have participated in this webinar today are also very happy to help you now and in the years into the future. Here's our contact information. And remember, we're part of the Small Business Liaison team, where there are more than 24 others like us from other state agencies who are also committed to helping small businesses. So please use us. Thank you again for the attention of your time, and we hope that you're successful. And please contact us if you need assistance.